Ant-Man and the Wasp, the 2018 installment in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, promises a high-octane ride with pint-sized heroes and grandiose action. Instead, it delivers a baffling mix of ant-themed absurdities, plot holes you could fly a quantum ship through, and a leading duo that spends more time squabbling over bug spray than fighting villains. While it may be wrapped in CGI wizardry and quantum techno-babble, this film feels like a comedy of errors, minus the comedy. So grab your magnifying glass and prepare for a microscopic examination of why Ant-Man and the Wasp is more fizzle than sizzle. The plot of Ant-Man and the Wasp is as convoluted as a season finale of a sci-fi soap opera written by a committee that got distracted halfway through by a YouTube video on how ants build their nests. Scott Lang, our titular Ant-Man, is under house arrest for his role in Captain America: Civil War, a detail that the film treats with all the gravity of a neighborhood kid grounded for breaking a window. Meanwhile, Hope Van Dyne, the Wasp, is on a mission to rescue her mom from the quantum realm, a place that sounds like a rejected theme park attraction from the 1980s. The film's central plot revolves around a series of increasingly ludicrous heists, where our heroes must steal various MacGuffins from a series of increasingly incompetent villains. Each heist is a laughably predictable setup for CGI-fueled chaos, culminating in a final showdown that looks more like a deleted scene from Honey, I Shrunk the Audience than an epic superhero climax. The story hops from one ridiculous premise to the next with the coherence of a kid making up a bedtime story on the fly. By the end of the movie, you're less concerned with whether they'll save the day and more curious about how many times they can shrink and enlarge random objects before someone asks if they're abusing their PIM particle privileges. The plot is a tangled mess of pseudo-scientific jargon and improbable scenarios that make you wonder if the writers actually understand quantum mechanics or just really like the word quantum. Paul Rudd's Scott Lang is a mix of clueless dad jokes and reluctant heroism, which might be charming if he didn't spend most of the film looking like he's just realized he left the stove on. His character's journey from house-arrested loser to pint-sized savior is meant to be heartwarming, but it often feels more like a series of wacky misadventures that you'd expect from a particularly unremarkable sitcom. Evangeline Lilly's Hope Van Dyne, the Wasp, is supposed to be the film's badass female lead, but she spends most of her time rolling her eyes at Scott's antics and delivering lines with the enthusiasm of someone who's just found out their flight has been delayed. Her character is a mix of tough girl cliches and exasperated sidekick tropes, making you wonder if she's more interested in saving her mom or just really annoyed that she has to work with Scott again. Michael Peña's Luis is the obligatory comic relief, delivering rapid-fire stories and exaggerated expressions with the subtlety of a clown horn at a funeral. His character's rambling monologues are supposed to be funny, but they often feel more like an excuse to pad the runtime than actual comedic moments. Even the rest of Scott's ragtag crew, including the tech-savvy Kurt and the jittery Dave, are less a team of competent allies, and more a collection of walking punchlines in search of a joke. The film's villains are equally underwhelming, with Hannah John Kamen's ghost delivering lines with the intensity of someone who's just realized they're out of milk, and Walton Goggins' Sonny Birch providing the sort of generic bad guy banter that makes you wonder if he's actually a threat or just really into evil monologues. The antagonist's motives are so muddled and their schemes so poorly executed that you'll be left wondering if they're trying to take over the world or just really bad at planning heists. The dialogue in Ant-Man and the Wasp is a masterclass in forced humor and cringeworthy quips, with lines that sound like they were lifted straight from a particularly groan-worthy dad joke book. Scott's constant stream of awkward one-liners and clueless comments is supposed to be endearing, but they often come off as the ramblings of a man who's never met a pun he didn't want to strangle to death with overuse. Hope's attempts at serious dialogue are equally painful, with motivational speeches that fall flatter than a pancake in the quantum realm, and attempts at banter that make you wonder if she's trying to flirt or just really bad at small talk. Her exchanges with Scott are filled with awkward pauses and strained smiles, making you question if they're actually a dynamic duo or just two people who got stuck in the same elevator for too long. Luis's monologues are the pinnacle of awkward storytelling, with tales that are so long-winded and convoluted that you'll be left wondering if he's recounting an epic saga or just really likes the sound of his own voice. The film's attempts at humor are so heavy-handed that you'll be left questioning if the writers were aiming for a comedy or just really bad at writing drama. Action sequences. A tiny torrent of tedium. The action sequences in Ant-Man and the Wasp are a dizzying blend of shrinky-dink antics and CGI absurdity that make you feel like you're watching a particularly over-the-top episode of Tom and Jerry. The film's various battles and chases are filled with rapid-fire shrinking and enlarging, turning everyday objects into weapons and vehicles in a way that's more confusing than cool. The infamous car chase scene, where our heroes shrink and enlarge vehicles while dodging traffic, is supposed to be a thrilling spectacle. Instead, it feels more like a poorly rendered video game level, where the objective is to cause as much chaos as possible without actually accomplishing anything. The film's reliance on shrinking technology for every action scene makes the stakes feel so low that you'll be left wondering if they're fighting for the fate of the world, or just really obsessed with playing with their action figures. The final showdown in the quantum realm is a mess of flashing lights and digital effects that looks more like a particularly trippy screensaver than an epic battle between heroes and villains. The fight scenes are so filled with random shrinking and enlarging that you'll be left questioning if the characters are actually fighting or just really into size changing for the sake of spectacle. Special effects, a visual feast of fumbling fantasies. The special effects in Ant-Man and the Wasp are a mix of impressive visuals and laughably bad CGI that looks like it was thrown together by a team of animators who got lost in the quantum realm and had to finish their work on a deadline. The film's various depictions of shrinking and enlarging objects are filled with flashy effects that are meant to wow the audience but often come off as a distraction from the film's flimsy plot and wooden acting. The CGI is particularly jarring in the scenes involving the quantum realm, which looks more like a psychedelic kaleidoscope than a coherent setting for a climactic battle. The film's reliance on special effects to tell its story often feels like a crutch, with the flashy visuals doing little to mask the film's many narrative shortcomings. Logic and plot holes, a Swiss cheese of a story. Forrest Gump might be a chaotic jumble of historical mishaps, but Ant-Man and the Wasp is a baffling parade of logical inconsistencies and plot holes that make you wonder if anyone involved in the production actually read the script. The idea that a man under house arrest could shrink and enlarge himself without anyone noticing is absurd enough, but the film's internal logic is so inconsistent that you'll be left questioning if the quantum realm is in a different dimension or just really good at hiding. The logistics of Scott's journey are equally laughable. How does he manage to travel from his house to the front lines of a quantum battle without so much as a plan or a clue? Why does everyone he meets either instantly fall in love with him or immediately try to kill him? And how is it that he manages to navigate a quantum landscape without so much as a scratch or a clue? The film's resolution is equally perplexing. The final battle with Ghost wraps up in a way that's both predictable and unsatisfying, leaving you wondering if the whole movie was just an elaborate setup for a particularly flashy fireworks display. The film's lack of any clear message or theme makes it feel more like a collection of random events than a cohesive story, leading to a conclusion that's as baffling as it is abrupt. Conclusion: a shrinking sense of humor in a Honey, I Shrunk the Superheroes farce. In conclusion, Ant-Man and the Wasp is a film that's more entertaining for its unintentional humor and over-the-top action than for any actual storytelling or character development. Its plot is a predictable parade of cliches, its characters are cardboard cutouts with capes, and its dialogue is a cringe-worthy collection of awkward quips and strained humor. The special effects are a flashy mix of impressive visuals and laughably bad CGI, and the film's logical inconsistencies. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Quirky Critic signing out.